summer of trades is upon us, already being considered one of the craziest NBA off seasons ever ahead of us. I can't wait. We've got the latest on this situation. I'm Trevor Lane. This is the Basketball Bulletin. Joining me is Donnie Freeman. You can tell he's ready to go. He's ready for the craziest summer ever in the NBA. Oh, yeah. Donnie, this is going to be awesome. And everybody needs to make sure they subscribe to the channel because things are going to go nuts around the NBA this year.
Yes, absolutely. Make sure you subscribe because we're going to keep you guys informed as that information comes out. But I'm hearing him say that. I mean, we kind of already had that idea, but hearing him confirm it is just music to my ears. I'm hyped for it, and I want to see what happens. Hopefully we don't get a dud and it's just like, one or two things and then the rest of it's kind of blah, but hopefully we get some good movement. That's one of the most fun things in the NBA, I think.
Yeah.
It's just, seeing the transactions unfold.
So Shams Charania said this on the Pat McAfee show about what the expectation is around the NBA for what this summer is going to look like. Let's check this out.
Am I accurate in saying this is going to be an active summer for the NBA?
Pat, this is the most, I think, anticipation team executives have had over an offseason. I think this is going to be the craziest offseason of I don't want to say all the time. We just came off a trade deadline.
Just say it, Shams. Just say it of all time. But I think there's a
That's
really
kind
key
of hard to say too.
Right?
That all time is a long time. Like
there have been some crazy ones for sure. Yeah, but I think the key is that Shams said among league executives, not like he's I can look at the situation. I can look at the summer. I can look at the cap sheets. I can look at where the motivation is, where the sellers are, where the buyers are, and we can project that it should be an active summer. But hearing Shams say that it's the executives around the NBA are expecting it to be an incredibly active summer, that they are anticipating this, that I think adds that next level of here we go. Everybody's expecting that this thing is going to go off.
Yeah, that's music to my ears because I think that we've talked about it a few times on the channel that there are teams, like you said, that have different motivations to be involved in a trade, but there are also teams that are in a position where, their only avenue to get better, to get over the next hump, to get to the next level is to make a trade with maybe even some of their competitors. So I'm curious to see how many teams are forced in a situation like that.
All right, let's take a look at what else Shams has to say.
Deadline. We just came off a trade deadline. I think it was the craziest of all time. I think this offseason might be the most craziest ever because I think there's many.
Most craziest ever.
That's crazy.
MCE. Most craziest ever, dude.
Most craziest ever. Probably grammar police is like it's craziest ever.
No, you got your point across. It's the most craziest ever.
Because I think what you have right now is you have the parity
English
in the league.
Sucks.
It's so thin right now. Like as far as the thin line of what you can win a championship or you might be falling into the lottery. And I think the ability to go out there and improve your team and get there to championship level, I think that's on the minds of everyone around the league. So how can you elevate your team?
Am I accurate?
Okay, so Donnie, that he mentioned something that I've been maybe discounting. Because I've been looking at this from the perspective of, yes, we're going to have an extremely active offseason, but it's because so many teams are close and because the East is, my God, wide open right now with the Boston Celtics. They're going to be probably out next year with Jason Tatum, his unfortunate injury. They're going to trade away some players. We know that's coming. Shams mentioned that as well, that he expects the Boston Celtics to look very different next year. So I expected that there's going to be buyers in the Eastern Conference that want to make that push up, that there's going to be buyers in the Western Conference because it's hyper competitive in the West. But Shams also mentioned that there's teams that are going to be feeling the pressure there because they don't want to drop into or out of even the play-in, which could be a factor in the Western Conference. So there's not just that motivation from teams wanting to rise to the top, but there's also that motivation from teams fearing a slide particularly in a very competitive Western Conference. That kind of feet to the fire situation, I think, could create some even more buyers on the market that maybe even I wasn't anticipating.
I mean, like a team like the Kings, who's like
Exactly.
right on the border, like, are you a big buyer or are you a seller? Because you could really go either way with your team. But if you're a team that wants to stay in the playoff mix, in the play-in at least, and you're scared of falling out of that range, do you try to make a big trade? There's some talk about DeRozan potentially getting traded elsewhere, things like that. And are you going to be facilitating that and getting that done? I'm not sure, but I just think that there are teams on the fringe in a really competitive field here for the Western Conference that could really slide either way. And it's interesting, the teams that are the actual playoff teams, they've got to at least make something happen, because I mean, look at 2 through 6. They're separated by 3 games. Like, these teams have to make something happen because they could very easily be below that line and into the play-in, which they don't want to have happen either.
So there's a ton of motivation on teams to improve. Now we know I talked about it a little bit yesterday about Kevin Durant maybe landing it with the San Antonio Spurs, but that doesn't mean the Phoenix Suns are going to be out of things. They still have Devin Booker. They're going to want to try to win right now. The Portland Trailblazers and the Utah Jazz are really the only teams that we could look at in now the rebuilding phase, assuming Victor Wembanyama comes back and healthy. Zion Williamson, fingers crossed, he can finally stay healthy. You would have every team in the West, with the exception of 2, that would be going into the season with the expectation of being a playoff team. And that, I think, creates a lot of motivation for teams to go get something done. And then again, you look at the Eastern Conference, it's easy mode, right? I mean, you've got
We're not going to talk about them. Come
right?
on.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, I don't mean to poke fun at these, but I also think there's opportunity here, right? Like if you are the Detroit Pistons, you got to be looking around, going, "Damn, why not us? Why not make a move to really go win right now? We could be the team that makes the run next year. The Cavs aren't so scary. The Boston Celtics aren't going to have Tatum next year. They're going to look different. The Pacers are playing great basketball right now. The Knicks are a threat, but is that really prohibitive of us making a run? No. And the Orlando Magic could say the same thing. Maybe the Hawks can talk themselves into something like that as well. But then all of this
is so crazy, because even Giannis is leaving potentially. Like that's crazy.
But as I talked about the other day, the Bucks pitch to Giannis is literally going to be, you don't want to leave us because you don't want to leave the East because look how easy it is here. That's their pitch.
That's a legit pitch, though. That's a legitimate pitch. Like,
it's funny, but it's true.
That's crazy. Like that's a legitimate pitch. I think that there's an opportunity for a couple of the bottom feeders to move up. You know, who knows what happens with Brooklyn, but I would expect Philly and Toronto to be pushing into the playoff range. Maybe Charlotte finally somehow, some way puts it together. They've got the talent. They just need to put it together. But, you know, most of the top teams I would expect to stay there. New York, Cleveland, of course, Indiana. But I think really when I look at both of these conferences, they're open for different reasons. This one is just flat out open, but the West is open because there's so much close competition. Yeah. And so I think that ultimately the most important thing just in the NBA in general is health, because that's going to, like, those couple wins, especially in the West, wins or losses you would get from either having or missing a star player or something like that, that's going to swing the entire thing for you.
Yeah, 3 through 8 has a 2-game gap in the West.
Like,
right
how
now.
how do you manage that? You've got to, health is the most important thing. And if you've got some guys that you have to, like, for example, Embiid is lucky he's in the East because a team just couldn't feasibly put him out there in the West with him saying he's never playing back-to-backs and all that stuff, and then injury management. Like, it's just not going to work. So I do have questions about Kawhi with the Clippers. He was, if last I recall, really healthy this year. But, like, I think health is the most important thing, because both of these conferences, for different reasons, like I said, are really open, and somebody could really swoop in if they have the proper motivation to really go to the top. But there are tiers to it. There are teams that want to go for a championship. There are teams that want to just stay in the playoffs, want to just stay in the play-in, and don't, just want to get that extra few games revenue. Like, that matters too. So
yeah, absolutely. And that, I mean, like, the Chicago Bulls have kind of been in that category. Now, all of this begs the question, who's going to be a seller out there on the market? And I'll tell you one team, like, obviously the Brooklyn Nets, they're going to try to be advantageous with their cap space or opportunistic with their cap space. I think the Toronto Raptors are going to be buyers, but Charlotte could certainly be a seller. The Wizards, absolutely. Like, they've got Marcus Smart, maybe they make a move with him. And then I look and I see Danny Ainge is just going to be sitting with a Cheshire Cat grin on his face right now, because you look, there's a lot of buyers out there. Are there a lot of sellers? Probably not. It's the Blazers, and what's that?
Is New Orleans a seller? Like, what if New Orleans gets in? I would expect them to be a playoff contender, but what if they get in and they have some of the same issues again? Did they just blow it up mid-deadline?
Then they could flip to be I think they would wait till the trade deadline to do something like that, though. But yeah, they could be. But I think the Utah Jazz are in prime position because, like the Blazers, they could be a seller, but how many guys do they have that teams really want? Like, there's a few guys, no question. Anthony Simons is an interesting one. Maybe even DeAndre Ayton could wind up on the move. But their core pieces are guys they're going to want to hang on to, right? The Utah Jazz, though, like Lauri Markkanen could be in play. You've got some players that, like, You've got a Jordan Clarkson if you're looking for a six man. Colin Sexton could maybe fit in that category. There's some interesting pieces there as well. So that's going to be a key component to all of this, is you've got to have some teams emerge as sellers. But I think one thing we learned last year, Donnie, is that teams will get creative. Even in a difficult market, even under the new and draconian restrictions of the CBA, teams will get creative on the trade front. And that's what I'm expecting to see a lot of this summer. So all of this comes back to, I'm excited. I can't wait for the summer that's ahead here, and to make sure everybody does subscribe to the channel, because we're going to keep everybody up to date. This is going to be a wild summer in the NBA, and I am here for it, Donnie.
Yep, I agree with you. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to see it all unfold, particularly starting with that Giannis trade. I think that's going to be, potentially anyway, the most important thing, and I think everything else will just kind of be hinging on that. So we'll see what happens.
Yep. You never know. You never know. All right, everybody, make sure you do subscribe right here to the channel. Till next time, see ya and stay safe.